If thinking like a scientist could add $19,000 to your annual pay and make your idea land, would you want to learn how? And who is saying this? Well, this is exactly what a report from National Science Foundation published in the year 2021 says. But you think becoming a scientist is not that fun, but listening to your podcast, Scientist for Fun, could make you one. This podcast is a lab for curious people, the kind of place where we'll take scientific thinking out of the white coat, make it human, and show you how to use it in work, conversation, and everyday decision. Employers, teams, and leaders are hungry for problem solvers and clear communicators. And the skills that make people good at science, even if they don't belong to a scientific background, gives them a higher pay and as well as a satisfaction that you're looking for in life. And there are some skills that is very, very important to cultivate even if you work somewhere which is far away from science. And what are those skills? It's curiosity, hypothesis thinking, and evidence-based communication. These are the same skills that make you better at managing projects, pitching ideas, or convincing your team to try something new. That's the gap that this podcast closes. So, who is this for? Well, this podcast is mostly for people and audience who are focusing on two things. The first funnel, people who want to learn what scientists actually do. They could be neuroscientists, they could be geologists, they could be chemical scientists, they could be data scientists. The rituals, the failure, the messy wins. You will hear behind the scenes stories from labs, startups, and fieldwork that make the scientist role human. Dealing with your supervisor, which is not easy all the time, postdoc, senior PhD researchers, and cross-collaboration communication. Second, people who want to think and communicate like scientists. Whether you are in street food sale, teaching, engineering, human resource, finance, you will get mindset shift and practical examples of applying clear communication at workplace conversation. Both groups will get the same promise. By the end of an episode, you'll have something tangible to try that day, a way to ask better questions, or to make your next conversation more decisive. This is not a boring class. Believe me, I won't bore you with equations or force to move or memorize the p-values, which even I don't know what that is. We're going to be conversationalist, curious, and useful. Expect short stories, one-page tools, and interviews with people who use science outside the lab. Entrepreneurs, clinicians, policymakers, and everyday problem solvers. Occasionally, I'll also bring some research into it because evidence matters. But I'll always say the number and the year so that you can judge for yourself. So you want data, right? And you ask for a good one. And I'll give you that good data tightly. For example, organizations that invest in capability building and structured problem solving report big gains. A McKinsey study found that after deep capability building, participants reported a 51% increase in core problem solving. That's a big shift in how teams approach problems, as reported by McKinsey and Company in the year 2022. And McKinsey and team focused research shows team-centered transformation can deliver around 30% efficiency gain when implemented well. In short, teaching people how to think and work together like scientists moves the needle for organization and for their careers. So what is there for you? What are you going to learn after listening to this podcast? Well, after a few episodes, listeners like you will tell me, I'll put in my email over there, and of course in the comment section, that how you feel about becoming simple and smart in the best way possible. Decisions that used to be about that gut, do you remember you have that gut feeling, that instinct, will now feel more like an informed choices. Conversations that would have stalled will start to have a new clear steps. This podcast helps you move from I think this might work to here, the most likely cause, and this is the outcome. The one test that will tell us and the next step we should have taken or we should take. That sounds technical, isn't it? But it's just a way to make your life less noisy in this digital world, which is full of information, and you have hard time filtering things out. Each episode will be of just 20 minutes. Why 20 minutes? Because you can go back and forth between meetings. You can listen while you walk. It's not going to be a 2-hour long podcast show ever. Some episodes will be interviews, some will be solo based on my experience as a neuroscientist. All will be short enough to listen, as I mentioned, on a walk or between meetings, but deep enough that you feel you learned something for real. For example, I would have topics such as the curious manager, why we trust number that talks about data, third, how to pitch an idea, and something like how data matters. Each episode will include at least one data point from a reputable resource and sources like McKinsey, LinkedIn, NSF, and others. You can follow for the evidence. I'll give you a small example. I was working as a researcher in one of the premium research institutes thinking funding would never be an issue, which was a false assumption that I had. And I once argued for funding to buy a piece of equipment I thought we needed, which actually we did back then. I wrote a long email full of reason and waited for weeks. Nothing happened. Nothing moved. Then I reframed it into a clear question. Just one question. And you know what was that? If this machine reduces our troubleshooting time by 20% for this particular protocol, we can run 3 to 5 extra experiments per month, which will speed our timeline by 6 to 8 months. I showed this one slide with a simple math, and believe me, it worked. The funding got approved. That's a small example of how scientific thinking might help you to measure what actually matters, especially in your workplace, in your career. The mindset that you will practice and cultivate with time is asking a crisp question, designing mini tests, and communicate the implication. And why this matters? Well, as you know, technology and roles are shifting fast. LinkedIn and industry analysts in 2025 highlight that many roles that have changed or did not exist a few years ago, and skills that are changing rapidly in this environment, the ability to think clearly and communicate is simply a durable advantage. Plus, AI is taking all over. So there has to be something which makes you irreplaceable. Your thought process irreplaceable. And the way you think, the way you walk, the way you talk, it does matter. A quick note, actually a quick disclaimer. This is not about credentials show. I won't pretend that every problem is solvable with data, nor we will turn experience into a study or a research. I will, however, help you separate signal from noise and make your conversation more meaningful, more useful. I won't sell that miraculous or the miracle template that would change your life in a day, because that never happens. Now, how are you going to use this podcast? Well, use this podcast like a practice gym. After an episode, try the mini challenge. Try one sentence takeaway in your meeting. Use the tiny experiment for 2 weeks. That's how the payoff shows up. Small changes, repeat it. If you're a manager, a student, or maybe an aspiring scientist, try assigning one episode as a short warm-up before meetings. If you're a student, as mentioned, a job seeker as well, bring an episode to a mock interview and practice explaining the idea in 60 seconds, which is also called as elevator pitch, which is very, very important. And one last reminder, the advantage of science-like thinking is backed by research. And I'm going to give you a real lab life experience from designing an experiment to learning new things every day. Most importantly, troubleshooting, data analyzing, and communicating your data in words that everybody can understand. Now we come towards the last part of this particular introductory episode. And once again, welcome to Scientists for Fun. If you want to learn what we scientists actually do, how we think and how we communicate, and how I can help you in communicating at work better, stay tuned because you're in the right place. So what do you have to bring? Well, nothing much. You're coming with a full pack of energy, a little bit of curiosity, bring coffee for sure, and bring a small problem that has been bugging you for weeks, for months, and I will try to turn it into an episode. Until then, take care, stay happy, because you are important.